Hello, how are you today? I want to talk to you about being a busy lawyer. We are going to do the very first inaugural Busy Lawyer Calendar class here on Friday. And I may be putting these on Thursday, but I want you to know you have a resource to learn how to use a calendar. Because so many of us think that we should just know. It seems so simple. We should just be able to make a calendar and just follow through, right? Like it can't get more simple than that, right? Like I put things on a calendar and then I just do them. That it should be that easy, right? It's not. And I think if you're here and you're frustrated by not following through what's on your calendar, you know that. And what I want to share with you is what I have learned bit by bit over the years and how I have done things like made myself into a morning person when I was most definitely a night owl for years. How I changed how I thought about my time so I wouldn't feel overwhelmed at the office, so I wouldn't be frustrated when people cut me off when I was in a hurry to get to the office. When all of these things I was doing, like building a business on top of my full time career as a criminal prosecutor, how could I do that without feeling anxious and stressed out and overwhelmed? It's because of the skills I'm going to be teaching you here. So I want you to know that this is a resource. These are going to be collected over time on Facebook here, so you can come back and you can watch all of them. So if you're watching this one, you lucked out. This is the inaugural one. If you don't know me, I'm Dina Cataldo. I am a master certified coach for lawyers, and I help them get out of the overwhelm and build the practice in life that they want. And what I want to share with you here in this very first episode is that most of us don't even start with a calendar because we get into perfectionist thinking. Because we think that if it's not perfect, if I don't get everything on the calendar done that I put on my calendar, what's the point? Why should I spend my time creating a calendar that I'm not even going to follow through on? Another thing that happens with lawyers that I talk to is they get into all or nothing thinking. In other words, they might follow a calendar for a day or two, or even a week or two. And then there's a day when they don't follow through on it, and then they tell themselves, okay, why bother? And they abandon their calendar. And the first sign that things are not going your way is not the time to abandon your calendar. That's the time to start asking questions. And that's what I'm going to share with you over these series of episodes, really, is to share with you how to start thinking differently about your calendar, how to ask yourself questions, how to coach yourself on what's going on with your time management. Because you do not need to be perfect to create a calendar. You definitely don't need to be perfect to be more productive and more efficient using a calendar. You definitely don't need to be perfect on following through on every little thing that's on your calendar either. And this is something that we just don't talk about. We just assume that if it's on the calendar and I don't do it, I'm a horrible human being, I'm lazy, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm procrastinating, when that's not always the case. We tend to beat ourselves up really quickly. And when we do that, we cut ourselves off from the benefit of having a calendar, right? If we're giving up, if we're abandoning the calendar at the first sign of things not going the way that we think they should be going, we're missing out on the long term benefit of having a calendar, which is the freedom you can create. And that kind of freedom that I'm talking about here is being able to take 2 weeks off at the office without checking your email. I do this with my clients routinely, helping them think through their calendars so that they are able to do it without overwhelm, without pushing themselves to the brink, without coming back from vacation with a pile of things on their desk and them thinking that, they never should have taken vacation in the first place. I want you to know that you can do this, and I'm going to show you how, right? You've already taken the first step. You are here. And now I want to offer you a couple things. So, the very first thing I want to offer to you is that I am not perfect at my calendar. And I've been doing this for years, and I don't need to be perfect at it. Doesn't mean I'm a bad human being because I don't do everything on my calendar. What it might mean is I didn't think about how long something might have taken, or I didn't think through something that I needed to think more clearly about. And I break all of the things to think about for your week in the Busy Lawyers Guide. You can download it at the link in the comments below or go to dinacataldo.com/busy lawyer. And inside that guide, I break down my process for creating a calendar, how I think about it, how I move through figuring out what needs to go on the calendar first, second, third. Like I really break down what needs to be prioritized in order for you to get the most done during your week and enjoy your week, right? Like it's not all about work. We want to enjoy our life. And that's what I teach you in that Busy Lawyer's Guide is how to structure your week so you're enjoying your life too. It's not all about work. Okay. So, I want to show you what my calendar this week looks like. And when I first get a calendar, I print it out, I do everything, I put it on the calendar, I print it out, and it looks very clean. It's all beautiful. And then by the end of the week, this is what it looks like. Okay, there's scratches out, right? Like I've got appointments that had been canceled. I had taken my car in for service this week, and so there were things that I couldn't do. I had to cancel those things. There were things that I decided to do to prioritize them instead of things I put on my calendar. And that's not a problem, right? None of that has to be a problem if you are really understanding why you're making the choices that you're making. And what I did is I looked at my calendar and I had decided earlier in the week I wanted to create one project. And then as I was thinking about it, as I was strategizing it, I was thinking, this is not enough time for me to feel really good about this project. I'm going to put this to the side, and I'm going to change the structure of this project so it's easier for me. And when I do that, it means I don't have to do it this week. It means it's going to go to a simpler time specifically set for it next week, which I usually have. So I made a big project much, much smaller, and I used that time differently. And so I made decisions around how I wanted to use that time as I went through the week. Most of us don't do this. Like most of us make a to-do list, right? Or if you even have a to-do list, right? You're like, okay, I've got to do 1, 2, and 3. You do those things or you don't do those things. And if you don't do those things by the end of the day, you beat yourself up and tell yourself you should have done them. Why didn't you do them? All of those things, right? We're not very nice to ourselves. What I learned to do over time was just be nicer to myself. I learned that, okay, just because I don't do something on my list doesn't mean I'm lazy. Let's take a look at why I'm not doing it. And when I looked at that larger project and asked myself why I'm not doing it, I knew that I was pressuring myself to get it done when it wasn't something that needed to get done this week. I mean, it's the week before Christmas when this is being recorded. And so I was being a little hard on myself and expecting me to do things when honestly, I wanted to give myself more time to work on this project. So I just changed the structure of it, and I may revisit it and make it a larger project again, but I'm changing it. You're going to hear it in my podcast next week. So, and if you're not subscribed to Be a Better Lawyer podcast, you can subscribe anywhere you listen to them, and I highly recommend it. I'm a little biased, but it's fabulous. So, the first thing here is just understanding that sometimes you make choices, and that's okay. Just recognize that they are choices and that it doesn't mean anything about you. Where we get into trouble when we abandon our calendar, when we beat ourselves up for not getting things done at the end of the day, when we don't do a calendar at all, is we are making it mean that if we don't make the calendar, we don't do the calendar perfectly, that there's something wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you. You either do the calendar or you don't. It doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean that you're lazy if you don't do a calendar. It doesn't mean that you're bad if you don't do a calendar. It doesn't mean that you are a failure if you don't do what's on your calendar. All it means is you didn't do what's on your calendar. And that's okay. Now, one of the things that I teach my clients is how to have that integrity with themselves, but it all starts with first just deciding to do a calendar, right? You can't even begin to build that integrity with yourself until you at least try. And so what I want to offer to you today is that you just try. You just pick one time during the week that you will sit down and do the work that's in the Busy Lawyer's Guide, or some version of that, right? Like at least writing down everything that you need to do this week and putting it on your calendar. I highly recommend you download the Busy Lawyer's Guide because that is going to give you a step by step and it's going to help you really think through how to put things on your calendar in a way that's strategic and in a way that feels really good. So, download that guide. But what you need to do is just create a time for you to do it. This is the skill that you need to learn to do that. Is just picking a time. Picking a time that's going to be easy. Like ask yourself, when will it be easiest for me to do this calendar? Now, I just started working with a client and we were doing this work together, and she picked a time at 9 a.m. on Mondays. Well, 9 a.m. on Mondays was not great for her, but she couldn't figure that out until she actually just decided to do it at 9 a.m. Right? Like we talked through it, but she thought, yeah, 9 a.m., not a problem. Monday morning, I can totally do it. What she found out about herself when she scheduled that time was that she really wants to be checking her emails at 9 a.m. so that she could be checking, people in different time zones, all of the emails that have been sent to her overnight, and that she could make sure that she was addressing anything that needed to happen. So 9 a.m. was not a great time for her to do her calendar. And she didn't find that out until she had made a decision to sit down with her calendar, and then she didn't do it. And so I want to just let you know that you can pick a time for your calendar. Pick the easiest time, the time you think you're going to do it, and then just observe what happens in that time period. The first thing you're going to observe is that your brain is going to say, I don't feel like it. Just so you know, that's normal. Okay. And then what do you do next? Do you check your email to avoid the calendar, right? And how uncomfortable you feel when thinking about doing the calendar? Do you decide that instead of doing the calendar, you're going to go make some food? I just notice what you do. I just want you to get this observation around just setting up your calendar and setting up a time to do it. That's step one. This is the end of the video. I just want to share that with you. Is step one of you doing the calendar is just making a time to do it. I suggest setting aside 1 hour, and then if you don't do it, don't beat yourself up. But I want you to observe what's going on in your brain and in your body when it comes time to sit down with the calendar at that time that you decided. What are you doing? How are you feeling? What are you thinking? I want you to really understand that about yourself. That's step one. Next week, I'm going to talk about what happens next. How do you start moving from setting up the calendar, a time to do the calendar, and then starting to follow through on things? Okay? And as we move through this series, I'm going to be sharing with you different tips that I needed to learn and I learned on my own, so you don't have to go through that, or you understand why you're going through things to get the result that you want, that freedom that you want ultimately from creating a calendar that helps you not only create more time, but reduce the stress, reduce the overwhelm, and really enjoy your life instead of feeling like you're tied to your desk. All right, my friends, download the Busy Lawyer's Guide. Go to dinacataldo.com/busy lawyer, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.